Hello, I'm Skip Alzheimer, and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. This is the first of the two that we're doing today. We're doing one a normal time for people on the East Coast and wherever, and then we're going to be doing one at 3 o'clock today on the West Coast for in conjunction with the AMIA Spring Conference. AMIA is the Association of Moving Image Archivists, and normally we meet in the fall and hang out and watch movies and talk about film and video and the technical aspects of it and all the aspects of it, and drink and eat together. It's a lot of fun, but due to COVID, it got canceled. So they did an online version in the fall and they did one in the spring. And so they asked me to do the lunchtime show for them. And so that's a special one that's going to be coming on later. So we just watched some 16mm film, some silent footage of, it just said Republic Aviation. Actually, it didn't even say that on the reel. It just was just a, leader. And then we saw, like, on the hangar, it said Republic Aviation. So someone pointed out that they were based in Long Island. So I don't know where they were flying out of, but some beautiful footage there that maybe they shot for promotion so they could show it to Department of Defense, the Air Force, the Army, Navy. Not sure. We don't really know how to use the footage sometimes. They just shoot it and it ends up in a can and it ends up in a box in a closet and then it ends up with a collector like myself. And that came from Oregon Archives in Pittsburgh. Got a lot of great films to watch today. This one is for, I believe that this is made for gas station attendants, but it could actually be for people who are getting their car worked on. I watched it once and I can't remember which way it goes, but we'll figure it out. But it's Can't Always Tell by Looking. Enjoy.
Beautiful day, Joe. Looks like a winner. Always good to see Mr. Edwards. He's been a steady ever since you opened 2 years ago. Every week, like clockwork, has his car tuned and serviced by the book. If you had 100 like him. What's this? Disloyal? Not really, Joe. Mr. Edwards' car wouldn't start while he was on vacation last week. His battery failed. Bad luck for Mr. Edwards. And for you, Joe. Mr. Edwards was inconvenienced, and you lost a profitable battery sale. Think about it, Joe. Many of the batteries you've sold this year were strictly emergency sales. And a lot of your steady customers, like Mr. Edwards, had emergencies too, and bought their replacement from the nearest source. With a little careful battery service, you could have had a satisfied customer and a profitable sale. Sure, Joe, you always check the battery and add water when necessary, and that's important. But you can't tell by peeking in the holes what's happening inside. That battery may be the victim of overcharging or sulfation, those hidden sicknesses that most often lead to battery failure. But from the outside, it's pretty difficult to spot the illness. The Atlas Battery Load Tester is designed to show you the internal condition of the battery, as well as the state of charge. The load test on this battery shows the condition good and the state of charge okay. test on its twin shows this battery is shot, worn out. This could be Mr. Edwards' battery, Joe. If we were to tear this old battery apart and examine the plates, we'd find much of the active material of the positive plates washed away and the grid mesh weakened. This battery is the victim of heat and overcharge, which accounts for most battery failures. Damage of this type accumulates over a period of time, and a load test will indicate when the battery should be replaced. The odds are, Joe, Mr. Edwards' battery failed from overcharge or sulfation. It doesn't really matter which one. His battery failed, and you missed the sale. Sure, Joe, it looked okay, but looks can't tell everything. The only answer to a satisfied customer and sales for you is regular battery testing. While it's not practical to test every battery, keep alert for these obvious situations that spell battery trouble. Remember the times a car wouldn't start after it was shut off for a few minutes at the pump island? A test on these hot stall victims often reveals a worn-out or undersized battery. Or the times you've sweated it out with your customer as his car barely cranked into life. A test of his battery would probably have indicated a need for replacement. Here's a live one, Joe, and battery sales opportunity number 3. A 3-year-old car with its original battery. This one even looks bad. Heavy corrosion, worn cables. Tests show that 1 out of 3 batteries that look bad are bad. Advise this customer that the average battery life is about 3 years, and that his may well fail when the weather gets cold or damp. A test with your Atlas battery tester is a quick and simple operation. It takes just about as long as it does to add water. If possible, show your customer the test as you conduct it. The easy-to-read meter face makes it a natural. If you can't, be sure and tell him when he picks up his car that you tested his battery. Even if it's okay, it will establish in his mind that you are servicing his battery. And when the time comes for replacement, the chances are good he'll buy his new battery from you. He'll believe you when one day you deliver the news that his battery needs replacement, and will be more apt to say, put in a new one. And you'll help him and yourself by always keeping a stock of your fastest movers charged and ready for installation. And Joe, be sure and sell your customers the battery that has the electrical capacity to do the job expected, regardless of how long they intend to keep the car. The savings they realize with the purchase of the economy battery may actually represent the price of future battery troubles. Hey, Joe, stop him for a minute. Is he really prepared to service that emergency call? Sure, he'll get the car started, and you'll hope that the customer will follow him back for a thorough check. But the odds are he'll nurse that old battery to the nearest source and buy his replacement there. You can cut down those odds by being prepared to replace a worn-out battery on the spot. 2 batteries, the PA23 and PA28, if used to cover all Group 23 and 28 applications, will give you over 70% coverage. If you add the PA29 and PA26 and use them to cover all Group 29 and 26 applications, you can cover 90% of the vehicle applications. the pump, look for original equipment batteries in cars over 3 years old. Observe the external condition of the battery. Look for corrosion on the cables or battery hold down, or dirt or moisture from spewing acid, all indicators of potential battery trouble.
Joe. Remember, you can't tell everything by looking. Keep your customers happy by following a program of test, tell, service, sell.
That's right, Joe. Test. Test batteries at every opportunity. Tell. Tell your customers about the results of your test, good or bad. Service. Service batteries and keep alert to sales opportunities. Sell. Sell by asking the motorist to buy. Sell Atlas for satisfied customers and extra profits.
Choked down a piece of an apple. I thought it went on just a little bit longer, but let me have some water. So yeah, that was made for people that run gas stations and service stations. And I love niche films like that. I really, really do. In fact, maybe I should show. I'll see if I can find it. All right, I might not have it handy, but I'll try to show it in the next week or so. I have this AC Delco film that I have not shown yet, and I really dig it. And it's specifically made for people who use AC Delco parts, and so gas station people and buyers for auto supply places and things like that. So I love that niche thing. It's one thing to make a film that's shown to customers about the importance of batteries, but this is all about how much money that service stations make off of batteries, and then the regrettable loss that one of their regulars had to buy a battery out in a Die Hard battery, a Sears battery. The shame. All right, so this is a fascinating film. This was made during World War II, and for people in the home front, and this is called Conquer by the Clock.
The clock on the wall. On the 7th day of December 1941, it struck the 11th hour. Every hour after that has been, will be, 0 hour. 48 United States of a free and sovereign America are at war. Every American has his job to do, and the will to do it, and the tools to do it with. Pray God he also has the time. Time, the most vital natural resource of a country at war. Every tick of the clock is time won or lost. Every 60-minute sweep, every 12-hour tour of those relentless hands is turning out carload lots of time for us to use ourselves or to give away to the enemy. All the scientific devices of chronology are machines manufacturing time. The tools that in our hands means victory. And our hands must be as relentless as the hands of our clocks. They cannot afford to be less. sunrise over Republic Steel. High noon at Willow Run. Sunfall on the Electric Boat Company. Midnight at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Dawn to dusk and back to dawn again. 3 8-hour shifts, one day. So much can be done in a day if Americans will keep their sleeves rolled up. Inside of 24 hours, 1/20th of a freighter or a tanker can be built. Within those same 24 hours, a squadron of tanks can roll off the assembly line, and a flight of bombers can be made ready from radio to rudder bolt. In one day, 1,000 acres of corn can become 30,000 bushels of food. In one day, one plant unit can turn out enough rifles to equip a battalion of infantry, the men who, in one day, might win a war or lose it. How? Well, let's visit upstate at a factory where they make 30 caliber rifle cartridges for the Army. Let's visit Jean, one of the girls who inspects these cartridges before they're shipped. She's a good kid, loves her country, and a guy named Joe. He gave her that pin she's wearing before he went to Australia. She's a good kid, honest, intelligent, but she gets tired in the afternoon sometimes, likes to take extra time off for a smoke. That's all, only a few minutes. A few minutes. It only takes a second to jar the primer out of a cartridge. And it only takes a second to put an OK ticket on a lot that should have been rejected. A cartridge without a primer is one that will never fire. It's about as useful in a rifle as a cigarette, or as the minutes that go up in its smoke. One bad cartridge, one chance in a million to get by undetected. 1 second in 60. One girl out of 100 who is an honest, patriotic, intelligent saboteur. Yes, Jean is intelligent. Intelligent enough to know that one of these bullets in good condition can travel 3 miles. But she doesn't know that a defective one can go halfway around the world. Somewhere in the Pacific, somewhere between the Devil and the Dutch East Indies, is an American scouting patrol. Too bad about that cartridge missing fire. It should have been rejected. It would have been, too, if a girl named Jean hadn't taken time out to smoke. Now meet J.G., general manager of a large wholesale food house. Makes $12,000 a year. Worn a white collar all his life. That is, except for the cocky one he wore in 1918. Tried to get in this scrap after Pearl Harbor, but they said his son could handle the fighting orders, and he could go on taking food orders. Like this. 50 cases of 14A1. That's code for lifeboat provisions. Notify Martin. That means ship on Monday. Too old to fight, but not too old to work yourself silly trying to get out orders and priorities on time. Time? Holy mackerel. It's 2:30. I'll have to rush like old Harry to make it. Better tell Mabel where I'll be. Oh, no. Why bother? It's Saturday. That lifeboat stuff doesn't go out till Monday. Nothing can come up over the weekend. Besides, I've got an important engagement with a couple of guys. Important engagement with a couple of guys. A couple of guys on the home team. Well, they are leading the league, and it's his first Saturday off in 4 months. And there's nothing that can't wait 9 innings. Nothing, that is, except time and tide and convoys. A change in sailing orders and an urgent wire in code. Lifeboat supplies to be shipped at once. Shipped by a man who is busy coaching at first base. Unfortunately, a convoy can't wait for the last inning. A convoy waits for the tide, and the tide waits for no man. Standing beside a lifeboat, only partly provisioned, 6 American flyers sail for Ireland in convoy on a freighter that falls behind its escort. It's an old story. Six men sailed for Ireland. 2 of them got there. 1 of them out of his mind. The other one dead. 25 days in a boat provisioned for 10 days. The tide rolls in, J.G., and the clock ticks on. And neither one, in peace or war, will wait for 9 innings. The state of North Australia is 23 time zones away from the state of Michigan. But the clock on the cockpit of the plane over Darwin and the watch on the wrist of the officer in New Guinea are synchronized with the clock at the door of the factory in Detroit and geared to the clock over the water cooler in Kalamazoo. The production rate of our factories and the firing rate of our guns is synchronized by one machine, the clock. This is the machine that manufactures victory, turning out 32.5 million seconds each year. Each separate tick, a precious tool to use in building our future. And you, these are your tools, your hands, and they must be as relentless as the hands of your clocks. If we are to conquer, they cannot afford to be less.
Still might and still our wellness to win liberty for all. Let's keep the flame of freedom blazing whatever may befall. Till every burning moment until conquered is the foe. In every time we fight for time, oh, we must ever onward go. You in the field and farmland, and you in the factory, will help to make men free. Bring peace to victory.
Wow. So RKO Pathé, that meant that it was probably distributed and shown in movie theaters, along with newsreels and cartoons before the feature films. And this, of course, is a rallying cry for the home front, the workers of the home front, to not dilly-dally. Really phenomenal to find films like that, because it really kind of talks about what was happening at the time and what were the expectations of civilians in World War II. Also where is it? It has great have to rush like old Harry to make it. Which, is that like what in the Sam Hill is going on? Is that like a, rush rush like hell to make it? Is that really what it is? And then it's this weird variation on, I don't know. Somebody tried to look it up, and I also tried to look it up to see, like, is there another place that someone talks about rush like old Harry? Is that some idiom? Couldn't find it, but maybe sometimes somebody will do it. Watch some old film from the 30s, and someone will say, I have to rush like old Harry to make it. Hey, Ned, thank you so much for the coffee. One way you can reward AV Geeks is to keep us caffeinated, so we can work the late nights for the war effort. And you can also hit like and subscribe and get notifications. There's some bell icon somewhere. All these ways are ways that you can say, hey, I enjoyed what I saw, and I feel like I need to learn more about it and let the social media know that this guy who has a bunch of equipment in his basement is he's entertaining, and you should share him with other people. All right, so this next film is a driver safety film, and I think it's by Progressive Pictures, which was based in the Bay Area of California, and has, I think, other films that they made. There was mild socialist leanings, is what Rick Prelinger told me. So here's Speed and Reflexes.
Man's ability to drive an automobile has limitations beyond which he dares not go. Automobiles have been built to travel at higher and higher speeds, but our own physical limitations, plus the natural laws of friction, centrifugal force, gravity, and kinetic energy, all combine to prevent us from exceeding speeds which violate these natural laws. Violation of these laws brings immediate punishment. It takes time to move. Even the quickest move you can make requires time. This machine, called a reactometer, can measure in hundredths of a second your reflexes, or the time it takes your eyes to see, your brain to order, and your hands or feet to carry out. This test presents a very simple situation, and the average reaction time is about 1/2 second. Under actual driving conditions, your reactions are not quite so simple. You may have to choose between several alternatives and pick the right one while your attention is focused on driving the car, hazards ahead, and conditions around you. This is called complex reaction time. Under these situations, you will require from 3/4 to 1 second to react. This device, called a brake reaction detonator, measures reaction time in distance. The detonator is hung on the front bumper. The person making the test fires the first cartridge, making a mark on the street. At the sound of the explosion, the driver applies the brakes, causing the second cartridge to discharge, making the second mark on the street. This distance, 22 feet, is how far you travel at 20 miles per hour before you can even begin to slow down your car. At higher speeds, of course, the distance is proportionately greater. In addition to our physical limitations, there are natural laws which work automatically and are inescapable. Let us first consider friction. The entire control of a moving car depends on the grip which 4 small areas of tire surface, each about as big as the palm of your hand, have on the road. This grip is called friction. The friction between the wheels and the pavement enables the car to start, stop, and keep moving. Friction plays its part when your car is rounding a curve, but there is also another force at work. This is called centrifugal force. A moving object tends to keep moving in a straight line. A rock whirled on the end of a string is pulled from a straight course by the tension of the string. If the string should break, centrifugal force would cause the rock to fly out into space. The same law holds true when an automobile rounds a curve. At a safe speed, the friction of the tires on the road surface does the same thing that the string does to the stone, holds it in its curved path. If your centrifugal force is increased by additional speed, your friction bond will break. The car will skid off the road. The amount of friction between tire and roadway depends on the condition of the tires and the condition of the roadway. Wet or icy surfaces can increase your chances of skidding as much as 10 times. At high speeds, even on the best roads, the force pressing against the tires varies due to unevenness of the road surface. On bumpy roads, the tires are actually off the road an appreciable part of the time. Every time the tire leaves the road, the friction bond is broken. It is just as necessary to reduce speed on a bumpy, dry curve as on a smooth, slippery curve. Safe speeds on curves depend greatly on the type of curve construction. There are 3 general types of curves: flat, banked, and crowned. The banked curve is the safest construction because the slope of the bank pushes the car toward the center of the curve. This provides part of the force needed to overcome centrifugal force and helps to keep the car on the road. On flat curves, the road push toward the inside of the curve is lacking. Centrifugal force is not counteracted sufficiently and increases so much with increased speed that you have difficulty holding your car on the road. On crowned roads, a car on the outside of the curve tends to slide down the crown and away from the center of the curve. The pull of gravity on the car actually aids the centrifugal force. Only greatly reduced speeds will keep a car that is rounding a crown curve on the road at all. Any moving object has stored or kinetic energy. The greater the speed and the greater the weight, the greater the stored or kinetic energy. This energy is what keeps your car in motion when you disengage the clutch. Kinetic energy varies as the square of the speed, which means that doubling the car's speed will quadruple the car's stored or kinetic energy. Extra speed adds frightfully to the power of your car to do damage. At 20 miles per hour, the force of impact with a solid fixed object will do as much damage as though it fell from a 1-story building. At 40 miles per hour, the force of impact would equal that of a car falling 53 feet or from a very high 4-story building. At 60 miles per hour, the force would equal a fall of 120 feet or a building 10 stories high. No driver can afford to deal lightly with such potential forces of impact. In order to stop a car, you must use up its kinetic energy. The greater the speed, the greater amount of energy that must be used up. Here is where friction again comes into use. First, the pressure of your foot on the brake pedal causes the brake bands to close around the brake drums, creating a friction drag which is transferred to the tires. This friction creates a back push of the road against the tires. The car comes to rest only when this back push or braking force has used up its stored energy. When a car is going downhill, the problem of stopping is further complicated. You not only have to use up kinetic energy, but you have to overcome the gravitational pull as well. So your braking force must act over a greater distance. The steeper the hill and the heavier the car, the greater the force that is pulling the car downhill. Brakes should be kept in proper adjustment. If one brake takes hold more than the others, it will cause a skid. Friction force is working harder on one side of the car, which allows the kinetic energy to pull the car out of line. Take care of your brakes so they can take care of you. Now let's see what happens when we combine our reflexes with our speed. With an average reaction time of 3/4 of a second at 20 miles per hour, you will travel 22 feet before you are able to apply the brakes. At 40 miles per hour, you will travel 44 feet, and at 60, you will travel 66 feet. In other words, if your speed is doubled, your reaction time distance is also doubled. Braking distances increase as the square of the speed. The car's kinetic energy must be used up by braking force. At 40 miles per hour, the distance is 4 times as great as at 20. At 60, it is increased 9 times. These are mathematical laws of driving that you can't beat. Your reflex time may be slowed down several times by fatigue. Driving efficiency falls with increasing fatigue, and you may doze off, resulting in a fatal crash. In addition to reflexes being slowed down, your vision is impaired by fatigue. It is difficult for the eyes properly to focus on distant objects. A danger zone always extends ahead of you. This is the distance within which you cannot stop. As the reaction time of the driver increases, the danger zone lengthens. As the speed of the car increases, this zone of danger stretches out much farther. Road conditions and brake conditions can make it still longer. The danger zone should never be allowed to become greater than that distance ahead which you are sure is clear of hazards. This is especially true of night driving. Each time your eyes meet the headlight glare of an oncoming car, your ability to see is reduced. Your visibility zone may be only 50 or 100 feet, while your danger zone may extend 300 or 400 feet. The combination of our physical limitations plus the laws of nature prevent us from exceeding a safe speed. We can evaluate approaching hazards only a few hundred feet ahead, and at 60 miles an hour we are approaching disaster at the rate of 88 feet a second. The laws of nature cannot be broken without immediate punishment.
Love it. Love it. Lots of diagrams, lots of talk about friction and inertia and vector math. Lots of physics in that one. Really quite something. And then those giant 50s cars. All right, we got another film coming up here. The Story of Sugar. It's Encyclopedia Britannica. And the color's all wacky at the beginning, so I apologize for that. It kind of stabilizes a little bit, but I think an intern transferred this and realized, like, oops, it's a little too blue, or whatever color it was, and then fixed it during the transfer. Story of Sugar.
About 2/3 of the world's sugar supply comes from the sweet juice of sugarcane, a tropical plant from moist climates. Sugarcane has long been known and valued in the Far East. It moved into Europe with the returning Crusaders in the 14th century, and Columbus brought it to America the second time he sailed into New World waters. Since that time, natives have planted, grown, and harvested the cane, crudely cooking and refining the juice, as they still do in tropical areas. But sugar has become one of the world's leading industrial products. In the United States, sugarcane is grown mostly in Louisiana and in some parts of Florida. It grows the year round, for while fully matured cane is being harvested on one section of a big plantation, there may be cultivators working in young cane just across a ditch. The cycle begins in the spring, as with most farm crops, when the ground is plowed and made ready for planting. After preparation, the ground lies waiting until late summer, July or August, when the planting is actually done. Taking tall, fully grown cane stalks cut from other sections of the plantation, the planters lay the entire stalk, leaves and all, lengthwise in prepared furrows, where they will be covered by ground-throwing cultivators which follow the planters along. Many acres are planted in one day. When the planting is complete, the ground is piled high in the center of the rows. Later, those same rows support the tender young stalks of growing cane. Cultivators pass constantly along, mulching the ground, killing weeds and grass, and piling more and more soil against the roots of the cane. While the cane is still in the cultivating stage, liquid fertilizer is poured into the soil. Like most activities on a modern, efficient sugarcane plantation, the process of fertilizing is highly mechanized. Everything is done during the early life of the cane to make it grow lush and heavy from the deep soil. Here is evidence of how successfully that job is done. A tremendous clump of roots has sprung from just one joint of the original piece of planted cane. From these roots will grow a large clump of stalks. Before long, the cane grows too high for further cultivation. Drainage furrows are then cut between the rows, and the cane is laid by to wait for full maturity and harvest. As cutting time approaches in late September and early October, tests are run every few days on sugar content of juice in the fully grown stalks. When the peak point is finally reached, the tremendous surge of harvest activity swings into gear. Specially built giant cutters go up and down the rows, cutting and laying bunches of cane in neat piles along its path. After lying on the ground for a few days, the leaves become dry and brittle. Fires are set, which sweep the long rows, burning the leaves quickly enough to leave the juice-filled stalks undamaged. Later, the cane is piled in bunches for the loader. This machine is something like a big hay fork, picking up the heavy bunches with its sharp, curving arms and dropping them into carts, which will take the load from the field either to waiting trucks or directly to a nearby mill. A big sugar mill at grinding time is a fascinating place. Giant cranes handle thousands of tons of cane a day. Streams of loaded trailers and trucks pour into the mill yard, where mountains of cane are stacked. Everywhere, one feels the urgency to finish the harvest before the first heavy frosts. There's a constant clank of chains and rumbling steel conveyors, and over the whole operation hangs the sweet odor of ground cane and cooking juice. As cane passes along the conveyor, streams of water under pressure shoot into it, washing away the dirt. Then it heads into the shredder, where whirring knives chop it into 1,000 small pieces. From there, it goes on into the mill. Inside, the shredded mass is dumped immediately into the crusher channel, where it passes between 6 to 8 ribbed rollers under increasingly heavy pressure. Beneath the channel, the juice pours from the cane pulp. After leaving the crusher, the juice is heated and passed through a huge rotating filter to remove impurities. The muddy substance containing those impurities is scraped from the filter as waste, while the juice passes on to its first cooking. And here is the result of that cooking. A black mass of molasses. This clears to a nice brown as the whirling pan throws the blackened liquid out through tiny holes in the sides, leaving only the brown crystals of sugar behind. This is raw brown sugar. From here, it goes to the refinery for purification and further processing before it becomes the finely granulated pure white sugar to which we're all accustomed. Some refineries are part of the mill which grinds the cane. Most of them, however, are separate, built to handle not only sugar from cane raised in the United States, but to accommodate the far greater amounts shipped in from places like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii. These men at the refinery are emptying sacks of raw sugar just received, and the final processes of sugar production are begun. First step in refining is to wash more molasses from the brown sugar crystals. Next, they are dissolved in warm water and passed through another filter. Here, the sugar is in solution with a warm amber color. Now comes one of the most important steps of the refining process. To make the sugar white, that amber liquid is filtered through great 25-foot tanks of bone char. These laboratory tubes, partly filled with char, illustrate the process. And the liquid sugar at the bottom is completely colorless. In the refinery's huge filters, char is treated and used over and over again. Char and sugar are fed together into the top of the huge tank. The filtering process begins. Here in the so-called liquor gallery, the progress of each tank is checked. Now comes the job of turning the liquid back to sugar and of producing crystals of the size wanted. This is done by boiling the liquid in a vacuum at low temperature. The operator checks constantly, studying the size of the crystals over a light bulb handily placed for the purpose. When the exact time has arrived, the tank of sugar, still mixed with some syrup, is emptied into a great trough. And now for the final steps. From the trough, the sugar goes to a centrifugal machine, where again the syrup coating on the crystals is to be thrown off through tiny holes in the sides. This time, only pure white sugar is left behind. With the crystals washed clean, the sugar is now scraped from the sides of the pan and sent on its way. Drying is done in great tanks like these, and from here, the sugar goes to the packaging room. Sugar. In 1742, it sold for $2.75 a pound on world markets. Only the wealthy could afford to enjoy it. Today, it is but one example of hundreds of items in daily use by the people of America and the world. Sugar. Modern industrial techniques and modern machines have multiplied sugar production many times over. Men have found ways to create jobs for untold thousands of people, and at the same time reduce sugar costs to a few cents a pound. It is used in many manufacturing processes, and is found in almost every home of every industrialized nation in the world.
cow bone in your sugar. No idea. Had no idea. I'm sure that process has changed now, and they've updated it because of, I don't know, it would have to be kosher. There's a whole thing there. It's kind of crazy. Anyways, the music for that was glorious. I absolutely loved. I got so excited at every aspect of the process because they had some good music. But William, thank you for the coffee. You can reward us with coffee. I wanted to leave you with some other sweet things. I just stumbled across these recently. I had them. The color is weird because it was a very early telecine. So everything's a little bluish. So here we go. Here's like 3 or 4 commercials.
Juicy orange, wild strawberry, and beautiful banana.
Soft and juicy. Bubblicious has the ultimate flavors. Delicious. The ultimate bubble has the ultimate flavors. Taste so unreal, they'll blow you away. Bubblicious.
Beef and gravy. All my boys love beef and gravy. But I had a hard time pleasing Sam here. Now I can, because Gravy Train dog food is all new, and boy, is it different. Old Gravy Train made good gravy. New Gravy Train makes it faster. A thick, real beef gravy, a lot like my homemade. Delicious, and not soggy either. Now all my boys get a real beef gravy meal.
Now get this special trial size bowl of new Gravy Train at your grocer's. Try it.
Finally, a robot to stop ladies from squeezing Charmin.
Don't squeeze Charmin. Don't squeeze Charmin.
Charmin's doubly fluffy, doubly irresistible.
Don't squeeze. Fluffy. Squeeze Charmin. Squeeze Charmin.
Squeezack's right. Charmin made the ordinary way might not get squeezed, but Charmin's doubly fluffy. It's so squeezably soft.
It's doubly irresistible.
Don't squeeze Charmin. Don't squeeze.
You can do it, Tony Jr.
Yeah, a perfect start.
Round the poles. Whoa! A little more practice, and I'll get it perfect.
Just like your frosted rice.
Yeah.
It's perfectly frosted.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly delicious.
Yeah!
Kellogg's Frosted Rice Cereal with vitamins and iron can be part of this nutritious breakfast.
Perfectly delicious.
Want to go back up the hill again?
I'll give it another tumble.
There's a little Junior for, yeah, boy. Most of those early 80s commercials. Bubblicious, of course, came out around the time that Bubba Young came out. And those were interesting from my standpoint. I was in high school. But those were soft bubble gum versus the insanely hard, like chewing on a sugar-flavored stone. That was traditional, like Double Bubble and all those other ones. I think somebody was like, you know what? If we just add, whip it a little bit with air and kind of put a little bit of some sort of solvent in there, we can keep it from being so hard to chew and charge more for it. So, thanks for tuning in today. I should say I actually looked at the AMIA schedule, and I'm getting started at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, not 3. So 12 o'clock or 12:15 Pacific Time, 3:15 Eastern Time. Set your clocks accordingly. So yeah, we'll be starting at 3:15, and I'll talk about AMIA, and I have some films that you've probably seen. This might be a greatest hits. If you guys have been watching my show, you'll see some things again, but maybe I'll have some more information that I can tell you. But thanks again for tuning in, and thanks for the coffee. That's always a really great reward. And also, hit like, subscribe, etc., etc. Those are great ways to reward us or punish us, however you feel. And you can go to avgeeks.com and see other stuff that we have online and DVDs that we have for sale, etc. Everybody, if I don't see you today, I'll see you tomorrow. And getting my second shot tomorrow. My wife and I are both getting our second shots. So, but it won't be until after the show, so I won't be laid up, I don't think. Who knows? But everybody, have a good rest of your day. As always, please rewind, love each other, and that includes yourself. And hopefully I will see you at 3:15 my time. Otherwise, I will maybe see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Take care, everybody.